But Brandon, we're going to move on to the next team. We got the Vanderbilt, almost said Vandy, Commodores. Didn't know which way I wanted to go, Vanderbilt or Vandy, so I said Vanderbilt Commodores. And I want to start this one off nice and simple. Let's look at the quarterback position because that's going to be a big kind of spotlight for this season because I know that you have Kyle Schumer, who last year showed some positive signs, but really struggled. 2/3 of the season he struggled, then had some big wins against Ole Miss, against Tennessee. I think, to me, I look at him as being the one that really has to show I can do better this season because if the quarterback play doesn't get better, Vanderbilt would be my number one, they're my number one point of attack for a team that could finish last this year if Mizzou does a little better.
So here's the thing. When you're talking about Kyle Shermer, and he did have a good end to his season, but he only hit on 55% of his passes, 9 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, but he does have most of his wide receiver weapons coming back, and he's able to still be able to play with them. He needs to be able to stretch the field. He needs to be able to connect on third down. So Vanderbilt, a team that usually the big play is not something that they've had in their playbook, but they need to find it because they need to be able to stretch the field. They need to be able to convert on those third downs. They need to be able to get better at time of possession. And I think being able to have Shermer be the guy to step up and do that is going to be a big thing. And that's going to be asking a lot more of him. But on this offense, not a ton of it is necessary with necessarily falling on Shermer because last season it certainly did not. The offensive player, I think, to watch here is going to be the running back Ralph Webb. And Ralph Webb Sr., and he has had back-to-back really, really good seasons. He had over 1,200 yards this last year with 13 touchdowns. The guy is good. He's very, very good, and he should be the focal point for this offense. But you don't want to completely just make it just a running team. You need to be able to have more than 9 passing touchdowns. You just need to. If you want to be able to win some more games, because you don't see the top teams only having 9 passing touchdowns for the season. I mean, that's in 2 games for some good ones. I think that Shermer will be important. I think being able to balance that run pass is going to be very interesting for this team. I want to stress how desperately they need to be better on third down conversions. They were 102nd in the nation last year on converting on third downs. They need to be able to do a better job of holding the football, grinding out time of possession, and being able to spread the field, really spread the field. And I think that you do that, and you're able to come up with some bigger plays, start to be a little bit of a big play offense, you start to win some more games. You start to see a little bit more of a spark out there on the field. And I think that's a really, really big thing, but that's something that you're going to have to ask more out of Shermer for, because that hasn't been Vandy for a little while. And that's why for a little while they haven't been one of those teams that is very much talked about.
Well, and this is kind of a complete 180 from the team we just talked about in the Mizzou Tigers, because with Mizzou, the offense was really good. The defense was the thing that struggled. For Vanderbilt, it was the offense and the quarterback play struggled for most of the season, minus the last 2. But the defense had them in games. I look at most of their losses, South Carolina, Florida, who was the 23rd ranked team at the time, Kentucky, Auburn, which was a number 9 ranked team at the time, and then at Mizzou. I look at each of those games. South Carolina, you only lost by 3 points. You give me one more score, you win that game. You look at Florida, it was 13-6. The scores that you were talking about, usually when that happens, you don't see that a lot. There it is. That's a low-scoring game. The offense couldn't put up more than 6 points. Look at Kentucky. You lose by 7. Auburn, you lose 23-16. Mizzou, you lose by 9 points. I look at those games, and to me, I look at it and go, the defense, if you're giving up 20, 21 points in a game, your defense did a pretty good job. With how offenses are in this day and age, either NFL or college, if you're giving up 21 points, I can live with that because I'm expecting my offense on the other side to put up more points than 21 points in a game. But when your offense is sitting there scoring 16, 17, 13, and 6 points in some big key games, you're not going to win those games. And I didn't even mention the Georgia Tech game where they got blown out 38-7. They only scored 1 score in that game. So I look at this Vandy team, and that is a prime reason why I feel like if Mizzou picks it up, Vanderbilt could be the team this year in the East that slides on down to that last place spot in the division.
Well, Ricky, I'll tell you what. From September 23rd to October 7th, I would not want to be Vandy because they're playing Alabama at home. They're on the road to Florida. Then they're home again versus Georgia. Yep. And even on October 14th, they go on the road to play Ole Miss. And I know that people will say, well, we beat Georgia last year, and we've gotten really close to Florida the last couple of years. And that doesn't mean that you won't get close again. That doesn't mean that you may beat Florida this year too. But when you look at the fact that Florida can put up some points, and we're not sure exactly how their quarterback situation is going to go this year, but you know what Florida's usually going to give you. Mm-hmm. Vandy, you have your defense to kind of fall on and be like, okay, well, we got a good D, so we can at least kind of hold them down or hope to be able to hold them down. But what are you going to do offensively? Because the last 2 years you've played Florida, the offense has not. They've stayed on the bus. They have not come to play. You lost last year 13-6. You lost the year before 9-7. The last time you beat Florida was 2013. Can you do it? Yeah, you're sniffing close. But if your offense had a little bit more life, a little bit more spark, your defense is clearly keeping you in the game.
Well, and
you need to be able to move that football. And I think a lot of the stuff that we talked about in the opening part of this segment is a big key to a win against Florida this year. Now, Alabama, I wouldn't expect you to beat Alabama, but if you're Vanderbilt and if you beat Florida, that's like your national championship game. I think if you beat Florida, it's like got them. And now it's not like, you don't go out and try and win the rest of your games. If you beat Georgia, if you beat a Tennessee, that's just, cherries on top. You beat Tennessee last year. You beat Georgia last year. Florida's that team. Florida's that team that you're just coming close enough, but not getting them.
Well, and to me, there's 2 things why the defense was so good last year. 2 areas that they excelled in. Red zone defense and limiting big plays. That was it. The big thing that this defense, though, is going to have to get past is Zach Cunningham. He's in the NFL now. He's arguably one of the best defensive players that Vandy has ever seen. And that's why the one guy I am looking at to kind of lead this team defensively is their senior linebacker, Oren Burks. He's got to be the guy. If he can be the leader this team needs and fill that Zach Cunningham role, then I have no problems about the defense. I have no problems if he can fill that role, because really, to me, the biggest loss you are missing on that defense is Zach Cunningham, who was a dominant force for the Commodores. I look at the schedule, and even the K-State game before Alabama, I would look at that game and go, that's not no cupcake game. Like that even the stretch, I would say the 16th to the 14th. September 16th to October 14th could be the death march for Vanderbilt. I wouldn't be surprised if they lost all 5 of those games. The big thing is this offense is going to need to, I'm going to be frank, and I'm going to actually, this is something where I'm going to say, sorry for the language, but this offense has to pull their head out of their ass. That's basically what if I'm being completely frank and completely down to earth, this offense just has to pull their head out of their ass and get consistent, get going. Because I look at those last two games that they played of the regular season against Ole Miss and against Tennessee, and I go, you have it in you. And if I know you have it in you, I know you should be able to have it in you each and every game.
I think you're right. I think another thing that's really interesting too, to keep it with the offense on this one, because I think this team in particular is one that focusing on the offense is a really easy thing to do. First quarter scoring for Vanderbilt last year. So their opponents, 92 points in the first quarter. Vandy, 52. They did not get off to fast starts. And that's one thing, too, is that, defensively, you overall were pretty good, but offensively, you couldn't get things going early. And the defense wasn't able to stop too many people early. You held them under 100 points. That's good, but, still in the 90s. But one big thing is Vandy, if they got into the red zone, they were scoring 93% of the time.
But you got to get into the red zone.
Converted in the red zone, and they were 43 of 46, 93%. Yes, you're right. They need to get into the red zone, but if you do, and you're Vandy, that's a really good thing, and you want to be able to have that carry over to this next season. But it ultimately comes down, I think, with Vanderbilt, is the fact that they need, I think, Shermer to really step up, be that veteran quarterback, be a leader, and be able to stretch the field. If he gets to 20 touchdowns this year, that's pretty good. That would be 11 more than what he had last season. And I think for him to do that would be great. You keep Webb with the same production that he's had. If he can get the 1,500 yards, just keep improving and building off of each season. 1,500 yards, 20 touchdowns. I mean, the guy is already outstanding. But if he was able to get to that, you start to see some more action out of this Vanderbilt offense. And if they start to be able to move the ball a little bit more, keep their offense out there a little bit longer, leaving the defense to rest a little bit on the sidelines, they come out, they're refreshed, they're ready to go. I think we could see a different Vanderbilt team, but that may be asking a lot for them.
Well, and my last thing, a positive for this team moving into this year, out of they're a very veteran team. 20 of the 22 starters for last year for this year are in their third year in the program. So they are a majority of upperclassmen on this team. This team is going to be competitive this year. I just look at their schedule, and I wonder if those 5 games we talked about might be enough, because you never know if there's going to be a shock game like South Carolina, Kentucky, in the Mizzou game. You don't know if one of those teams is just going to get the better end of you, if it's just going to be an any given Saturday sort of situation. I think this team is going to be competitive. I just wonder if in the end we are looking at it and saying, yeah, no, this team is better than last year. I wonder if we'll look at the record at the end of the year and go, wow, this team had the talent to get it done. They just couldn't get it done this year.
I'll be honest with you and say, now that we've talked about the first 2 teams from the bottom up in the SEC East, if I were to pick a team to be at the bottom out of the first 2, it's Vandy. I see Vandy as they have some opportunity. But I think that if you look at both teams, does Mizzou's defense need some work? It does. Their offense is in a much better place, I think, than Vanderbilt's. Vandy's offense is still in limbo. They still don't have those big plays. And because of that, I have to put Mizzou ahead of them. And right now I would have Vandy in the cellar.
As John Madden would say, you can't win if you can't score. And that's as simple as it gets for Vanderbilt, especially when your offense is the one that's struggling. But I want to turn on to you guys. Vanderbilt fans, let us know down below what you guys think. What do you expect from this team this year? Do you expect the offense to be better? How about your defense? Some would say that this defense took a slight step back last year, and they were still pretty good, especially in, like I said, red zone defense and against the big play. Let us know what you think about the Commodores heading into the 2017 season.